What's up? What's up? There it is. What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's having a good day. Happy Tuesday. Just getting everything set up here. Give me 1 second. Yes, man. What a day. It's good to be back on here to share some information and knowledge with you guys. I have received one question that I definitely want to talk about it. And if there is anyone else that has anything that they have, any questions they have, make sure you go ahead and um, let's go. Report, really. Let's go ahead and feel free to just drop your questions in the chat. But again, I'm happy to uh, see you all here today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So I got a question in the group today, and it was asking about the Supreme Court ruling. And so I think that's a really good question to go into, especially as we go into summer recruiting. This particular parent was asking as it relates to their 2027 grad, which means this athlete is heading into their junior year of high school. So a really crucial year, basically, if they are, if they are, uh-oh. Are y'all seeing, sorry, if you could comment, because I got a message saying that you're not seeing it, but are you all seeing the, are you guys seeing the live real fast? I'm getting a message that um you're not seeing me. You guys can just let me know in the comments. That would be awesome. I got a like, I think. So does that mean you guys can see me? If someone wants to put in the comments, that would be really helpful because it just gives me a clear indication. Let me know. Let me know. Aaliyah. Yes. All right. Cool. So yeah. Okay. Cool. So maybe it just was for a second. It wasn't going through. But all right. Yeah. So this athlete is going to be a junior, and we're getting ready for this particular athlete. Will eventually, by September 1st, have the opportunity to officially have conversations with Division I schools. So I just want to go back a little bit and reiterate um, that September 1st is a date um, that's been given by the NCAA as the starting point of conversation. But remember that if they are looking at Division I schools, there should already be, or at least be on their radar, there should already be some conversations already happening for the most part. Doesn't mean that it can't happen on September 1st, but it is understanding that for a lot of athletes, that's just an official day to have an official phone call. So just to be clear on that. So everybody else, just so you know, there used to be a rule that even Division II schools were unable to communicate um, with athletes before June 15th going into their junior year. So that would be in a few days. That used to be the rule. That's no longer the rule. So Division II schools can talk to athletes now if they wanted to. NAIA schools now, Division III now, community college now. Okay. So just to be clear on that, the only schools or levels that cannot technically have personal phone conversations with these athletes are Division I schools. So let's talk about the Supreme Court ruling. So this Supreme Court ruling basically mandated a roster cap on programs. So for a lot of programs that are non-revenue sports, so these are sports that don't bring in money to the school. Softball is one of those. Previously, they were, you know, they were sports that was not funded heavily. Like, so what had to happen was in most cases, a lot of coaches had to pad their team with walk-ons. They had to pad their team with academically strong athletes so that they could, help fund or use the money that they have for scholarships to fund like key roles on the team, but also fund like travel and things like that. So this rule basically eliminates the ability to pad your roster with more people over 25. So like 25 in account. So there are some college programs that if you look, even if you look at the World Series, there are some travel programs that have, upwards of 28 athletes to 30 athletes on their team, which is crazy. And I don't know as a coach that I'd ever want to coach that many athletes anyway, but that is a thing for some programs. Now, for most of the Division I programs, I would say they mainly range from, I would say, I think I was at the University of Washington, we had 17 at one point, which was not a number that she wanted to have, but it's kind of how it ended up. And then even at Hampton, we got to 23 or 22. So we don't usually hit that 25 mark, but it does happen. So first and foremost, what this cap did was, or what this ruling did was give us a roster cap of 25 people. Okay. Now, on top of that, what they also did was open it up for schools to offer scholarships up to a certain amount of people, or money amount up to how many scholarships. So the way that works is most non-revenue sports, we call them non-equivalent sports. And so in most cases, like softball, unless you're at like Power Five schools with softball and some of the other baseball, um, most sports other than football, really, or revenue generating sports, would have a lower number of scholarships. And again, this is based off of, this also depends on the school itself, but more times than not, softball would have the opportunity to give out 12.5 scholarships in scholarships. So they would have to basically break up 12 full scholarships and a half scholarship between however they wanted to in their roster. Now, the NCAA now in the ruling basically now is saying that we now have the ability to give up to 25 scholarships out. Now, where this gets tricky is that the NCAA does not fund these scholarships. So they don't actually provide funding that allows us to do that. They also don't sanction how you give this money out. So where this can be tricky is they made this way to help incentivize athletes with NIL deals, where a lot of schools are now taking part in partnering with the particular athlete to help them gain revenue from scholarship money to help them come to their program. So Kennedy is not necessarily on this exactly, but what Texas Tech was able to do was say, we can guarantee you this amount of money past your tuition, and then we'll get donors and other people and sponsorships to match that or raise that. So that's how she gets to $1 million, right? So even though they have 25, they don't have it yet, but even though a school might have 25, the opportunity to give 25 scholarships, it doesn't actually mean that they give it to each individual athlete on their team. So that's to be clear on that. That's number one. So the number two part of that is that not every school is going to actually fund all 25 of those scholarships. It is a cap that has been raised as an option to be able to do so, but it's up to the school if they're willing to fund those particular numbers. So I can say football as a revenue generating sport in most schools, they're going from 83 scholarships possible to 100, I think it said 105 or 115. So you would imagine that a school would probably be more willing to fund those additional scholarships more so than they'd be willing to fund more softball scholarships, because their football team is usually the team that's going to bring in more revenue for the school. So it's worth it to invest that money in order to recoup that money in, TV deals and things like that. So it is a nuanced sort of situation, but ultimately, what it is saying is that the cap has been lowered for how many people we have on our roster, but it has been raised for how many of those athletes we can give athletic scholarships to. But again, that depends on if the school is willing to fund those scholarships. So that's sort of where a lot of schools are going. So, how does this affect the 2027 athlete? So number one, I think the biggest thing is when you're looking at schools, you should probably spend a little bit more time paying attention to their roster and who's graduating within the class that your daughter will be going into the program. So I would say she'd be looking at the junior class that's she'd be looking at the junior class or senior class that's leaving that particular school. How many of those athletes are like leaving? You wouldn't know if they're graduating, but how many of those athletes are seniors? We'd assume if they're marked as seniors, they're going to eventually leave. So that opens up that roster spot and potentially frees up some money. So that would be how you would want to look at it. But again, understanding the dynamic of recruiting, um, more times than not, we are already planning, for instance, our junior class, we're only losing 3 athletes. So that money is already in conversations with athletes that we're talking to. So, like, again, that would be sort of how you think about it is like, it doesn't mean that when they leave, it just transfers over to the next class. No, it's really like we're probably already thinking about how this money is going to go towards the athletes that we are recruiting. So, a good time to get on the coach's radar is ASAP because we want to try to figure out if we can account or be accounted for in that money that they're trying to use for those athletes that are graduating. So that's a very complicated way of saying that we have a cap of 25. So how does that affect the walk-ons as well? Is that now schools are less likely to bring on walk-ons because um, we already, well, it depends on the school. Because I would say if they're not going to fund the scholarships, it's still worth it. We might still need the extra bodies to get to 25 or to at least help us sort of significantly keep us at a space to compete. So on one end, some schools might still use walk-ons because they're, again, assuming they don't have to spend any more money on them. Hopefully they're there on an academic scholarship or something like that. So I would say that might be the case, but I would say in some of those bigger schools, they're probably not looking at walk-ons at all because they're now trying to figure out which athletes they want to give money to. They're going to spend money on them, so they're expecting more of them, which means that they're probably recruiting them sooner. So a lot of nuances to it, but I hope that I helps that be a little bit clear. What you can always do is Google, you can always Google like understanding the Supreme Court rule because that'll kind of give you some guidelines. But I think one of the biggest things to understand is that even though there are the opportunities to fund 25 scholarships, it doesn't mean that the school is going to fund that. And if they do, it might be depending on like the sport or if that how that sport brings in money for the university. So I hope that that was clear as mud, but also a little bit clear. But that was one of the main questions that I had today. So if anyone has any other questions, go ahead and throw in the chat for me. Um, and if you don't, I would say, let me see, what else can I give y'all today as a final little thought? Hmm. I was really pushing that one today. So what else can I give y'all? Y'all got any other questions? I'm gonna tackle this one real fast. I'm working with a few different athletes. And, I know we're getting to the end of the school year, and for some, and some are actually, I think that's a good question. And some of the athletes are done with school. If you're probably on this side of the country, you're almost done, but some of the West Coast schools, they have a couple more weeks. And I think one of the biggest things that I keep hearing from athletes is time, like not having time. And um, I'm gonna just be straight up with you. If your daughter is, or if you are helping aid the excuse that your daughter doesn't have time, or they keep telling you that they don't have time, I would ask the serious question of do they really want to play at the next level? I think that's a really big thing that I think the idea of playing at a big college, playing at college is great, but if they don't have time to do the work to get to those colleges, then like I'm scared for what they're going to do when they get to college, right? So I wanted to address that because I think that's a really big thing. And I want to reiterate how important it is for athletes to play travel ball, softball if you want to play at college. So I wanted to kind of reiterate those two things. So, any tips on how to approach a coach at a showcase? It's a really good question, and I like it from you specifically because your athlete is technically too young to have any conversations with most coaches outside of a showcase. So, as you know, or you might not know this, but when you guys go to these tournaments in the summer, there are usually certain times that an athlete can freely communicate with a coach versus not. Usually that's in a camp setting, or if it's a showcase and the coaches are working like the game, say they're helping coach the team in the game, which they do here in Virginia a lot, I've noticed, then they can kind of have free reign to ask questions to these coaches. So definitely use that time. Like it's a great opportunity to do that. But if the coach is sitting in the stands and watching your daughter, they technically cannot talk to that athlete if they're Division I school. They technically cannot talk to that athlete. So understanding the difference between the two is going to be really important. Again, unless they are seniors. Um, and so that's really important to understand. So I think back to everything that I bring everything back to when it comes to social media, when it comes to Twitter, when it comes to YouTube, when it comes to emails, it's really displaying and talking to the strengths of that particular athlete. It's what are the things that you want that coach to know that makes you stand out compared to other people on the team. So, or other people on out there that they're watching. So, I think the biggest thing is like, especially for an athlete that is this young, is really just kind of getting to know them, like taking the pressure off and really just asking questions about their program. I think one thing I really liked about a team that I worked with when I first moved here is their coach made them ask a question to the coach, and it usually was something like, "What's your favorite food?" or something like that. And so it was an icebreaker, but it was an opportunity for them to kind of ask something that wasn't too serious or heavy. And now I have a player that I always call Quesadilla because of that question that that coach had them ask us. So it was not about anything recruiting. It wasn't about anything what you're looking for, when are your camps. It was more about a human conversation about what's your favorite food, right? And so if they can find ways to insert little things like that, I think that's a really cool thing to do. But I think outside of that is, I think trying to find human related conversations is always going to be good. So I think that would be my advice to you on that. So what's their favorite food? Hey, where they're coming from? Did you play? Well, you probably should find out on their website. So don't ask them, did they play in college? But maybe what positions they played, what do they look for in that position? I think if they had a tip that they give them, I think it'd be really good to kind of ask them to elaborate on the tip. Like, okay, hey, I think, hey, do this particular thing. And then the player can say, okay, yeah, I really like that. Tell me why, like, that's a really big deal. Why do you like for athletes to be able to do that? So I think allowing the coach to kind of lay a foundation and then asking a follow-up question would be good too. But if you don't have a foundation, I think given what's your favorite color, what's how's the day going today? My coach, you can even put on your coach. My coach made me ask this question, but what's your favorite food? So I think those are good. Those are good things to kind of just give icebreakers to. So awesome. Well, great. Well, I am out in a tournament this weekend here in Newport News. So I think I'll see some of these athletes that come to this. I'll see you guys out there this weekend, and then I'm headed to California or Washington first, and then to California to a camp out there, and then to Colorado for another camp. So I'll still be here on Tuesdays, but I will be definitely in the grind of recruiting. So exciting things to come. So anyway, hope you guys have an awesome day, and I will see you all next week. Talk to you guys later.